Hey, Shalom. First and foremost, I'm going to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Rekah, HaKodash. Double honor to the other apostle, great millstone who rule well. And salutation to the Most High's man in the four corners of the earth that are pushing his word of sincerity and truth. And shalom to the sisters that support and subscribe wholeheartedly to the message of deliverance and salvation of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai. It's your brother, Binyamyan, for GMS, Mississippi. With the topic going into overcoming hardships and practically stand strong in the faith. So without further ado, we'll start here in the book of James, chapter 1 and verse 1. James, a servant of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai and of the Lord Hamashiach Yahushai, to the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad, greeting. My brethren, count it all joy when you fall into diverse temptations, knowing this, that the trying of your faith worketh patience. So these particular diverse temptations that we fall into, we can be glad and rejoice unto Yahweh Bashem Yahushai that we're suffering as sons and daughters and not as bastards. Because the bastards of the Lord are practically castaways, and the things that befall them are things that befall them for their own demise. But the Most High had care for his saints. He has care for his children. And then in verse 3, knowing this, that the trying of your patience, or the trying of your faith, worketh patience. Because it's all about building you up to a certain skill level, a spiritual skill level, to where you're ultimately found worthy and acceptable in the eyes of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, the host of the heavenly angels, right? And that's what it's all about. And that's why, the scriptures stand firm as well. In these last days, your sons and your daughters, shall prophesy. They shall begin to see dreams and have visions, so on and so forth. And that's why you're getting all these accounts of men, of women, of sons and daughters and children of Israel that are forecasting future events to where the land is full of fire, future events to where there are many bodies in the street, unalived, future events of melted buildings. And these are all accounts that I've, heard myself. And especially from children. I remember years ago, I asked my daughter, I said, what do you think the end will look like? And she said, fire. She said, and a lot of people dead. And she could have been, maybe 6 years old at that time, before I was, ever really instilling anything outside of, doing the right thing, some laws here and there, the high holy days, so on and so forth. But as far as prophecies and end times, there was nothing that we ever discussed one-on-one, but that was the spirit that was inside of her, to make those proplications. And yet now she's 14 years old. So let's jump to the book of Romans. I'm going to get the book of Romans here. And then we'll read Romans 8 and 28. And it says, and we know that all things work together for good to them that love Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, to them who are the called according to his purpose. Right? So being called into the purpose of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai is basically our strong point. And calling upon the names of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai are our strong tower. And that's why the scriptures state that the righteous runneth into it and are safe. But we understand that all things work out for the good to them that love Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. And what is love? Fear. So ultimately, it works out for the good of them that fear the Heavenly Father's only begotten Son. And those people in the world, they don't have any fear. And that's why it's good to not even have any sympathy and remorse for them. The judgments that befall them could have been avoided if they simply feared the Heavenly Father. So when the Heavenly Father decides to punish them, who are we to mourn and ask why this happened to this person and, say the Most High is wrong for this. And, how people in the world, they say, I blame God for this. I blame God. Okay, that's fine. You're not one of his. And whatever happened to the person that you are blaming the Heavenly Father for judgment befalling them, they weren't of his either, obviously. The Heavenly Father is getting all these wicked people, by the process of association. guilty by association, so to speak. And that's why we don't have any particular concerns, because even when things seem bad for the elect of the Heavenly Father, we still consider that the Heavenly Father is dealing with us. We still consider that he's working with us. And this is how we continue to battle the constant woes of despair, the constant levels of sadness and depression, because we can, understand hardships by overcoming them. And we overcome hardships by understanding them. And that's how we continue to stay strong in the faith. But those that are without, and you don't have that faith, you don't have that confidence, the Heavenly Father didn't give it to you. Because it's a gift. And all gifts cometh from where? From on high. And it's the Heavenly Father's complete obligation to give those levels of faith. He chooses whom he desires to give that gift unto. And we just have to, appreciate and value that the Heavenly Father has granted unto us his precious gift. Therefore, we hold on to it for dear life. Now let's read here in the book of 2 Corinthians, chapter 12 and verse 9. It says, "And he said unto me, my grace is sufficient for thee, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. Most gladly, therefore, will I rather glory in my infirmities, that the power of Hamashiach Yahushai may rest upon me." When you read here, it has power and it has weakness. And he said unto me, my grace is sufficient for thee, for my strength, right? My power is made perfect in weakness. Most gladly, therefore, will I rather glory in my infirmities, that the power of Mashiach may rest upon me. Because that's what keeps you going as a juggernaut. That's what keeps you motivated. That's what keeps you inspired. Because the only other option is to lay down and not do anything about it. Lay down and take it. Lay down and have a war's me spirit. Or you can utilize it as a superpower. Utilize it as a kryptonite to propel you forward. Because if you're not propelling forward, then you're either staying complacent or you're going backwards. Because even natural physics of life can't contradict that. If you're not going up, you're sitting down. Or you're going down. So let's jump to the book of Philippians chapter 4. So this Philippians chapter 4 in verse 13. I can do all things through Hamashiach, which strengthen me. Because we know that through Yahushua comes patience, comes discipline, comes understanding, comes wisdom, comes discipline. So there's no obstacle that is too big, too wide, too powerful, especially when Yahweh Hashem Yahushua is backing you. If he's your support, if he's your spine, if he's guiding your footsteps, if he's holding your hand along the way, if he's blessing you with wisdom, knowledge, and understanding to where you're moving correctly, I can do all things, right? As it states here, because our strength comes from the Heavenly Father. And that's why these peons in this world, they're annoying. They're unnecessary 99% of the time. But when you understand what the Heavenly Father hath prepared for them, man, you can just count it done. You can stick a fork in it, because these people are done. We just have to constantly endure. That's what it's all about. All right, so this is the book of Isaiah, chapter 41 and verse 10. All right, 41 and verse 10. Fear thou not, for I am with thee. Be not dismayed, for I am thy power. I will strengthen thee, yea, I will help thee. Yea, I will uphold thee with the right hand of my righteousness. So Yahweh Shem Hawashai is upholding the elect Yahweh Hashem Hawashai is upholding and strengthening those that fear him, those that are keeping his laws, statutes, commandments, his ways, right? All of his righteousness. So those that take heed unto the righteousness of the Lamb, right, through the only begotten, through the Most High, the Heavenly Father, through his only begotten Son, then the Heavenly Father and his only begotten Son are doing what? They're dealing with you. They're going to keep you. They're going to protect you. They're going to guide you. They're going to preserve you for life and not for death. And this is the book of Psalm, chapter 34, in verse 17. The righteous cry, and the Lord heareth, and delivereth them out of all their troubles. Financial troubles, physical troubles, economical troubles, health troubles, enemy troubles, war trouble, famine troubles, thirst troubles, car troubles, housing troubles, spiritual troubles. The Heavenly Father, he delivered you. All right? You just have to continue to do his will, right? You have to continue to do those things that are well-pleasing in his sight. Okay? So the last one that we'll get is the book of Galatians. We'll end off here in the book of Galatians, chapter 6, real quick. And verse 9. Galatians chapter 6 and verse 9. And let us not be weary in well-doing, for in due season we shall reap if we faint not. And that's what it's ultimately all about. Most High's will, you were edified. Until next time, I say shalom.